Speaking about Notre Dame, Joe, they win the transfer portal and got 2 wide receivers, Will Pauling and Malachi Fields. Let's start off with Will Pauling from Wisconsin. Your thoughts on the addition there from the transfer portal for the Irish?
Yeah, well, so with both of them, Notre Dame needed to be aggressive this portal haul to get and bring in receivers. It has been something that the past couple of cycles we've talked about. They've been a little underwhelming at recruiting receiver, and they've got a couple of young guys in the fold, like Cam Coleman's a guy that, or no, not Cam Coleman. I'm freaking blanking on his name. I'm going to look at him in a second, but they've got 4 or 5-star receivers that were a part of the last recruiting class that could step up. They needed explosive playmakers. They just need something. We saw that they didn't get any production against Indiana outside of Jordan Faison. They didn't have anybody to turn to. Will Pauling, I'm not the biggest fan of bringing him in because I just feel like he plays into the mold of a group of guys that they already have that didn't generate much production. He's supposed to be a 4-3 guy. He's somebody who's going to operate and win a little bit more out of the slot. Where I'm the most excited is them getting Malachi Fields from Virginia, Blake, because they haven't had a guy like this, a 6'4", 220+ pound guy that wins at the catch point. Notre Dame hasn't had somebody who has the production of a Malachi Fields in the ACC. If you look at Malachi Fields' production this year in some of their bigger opponents, he had 129 yards against Louisville, which has a good secondary. He had a touchdown and 65 yards against Clemson. He had 81 yards against Notre Dame's great secondary. So Fields is where the player I'm the most excited about. If at the end of next season, we're going, wow, what an underrated portal get. My last piece on this before I let you jump in here, I'm being a lot more conservative about expectations for what happens with these Notre Dame receiver additions, because I was really excited about Chris Mitchell, and Chris Mitchell didn't do shit this year. What makes me feel a little bit better is that Chris Mitchell was playing at FIU, and both these guys were playing against tougher opponents and have production against Power 4 opponents.
Well, hold on now. You're going to have a quarterback that can throw the ball a little bit better than Riley Leonard.
Right. It's either going to be Kenny Minchie or CJ Carr that's going to be playing quarterback.
CJ Carr. Okay. Let's pull the Band-Aid off of this. Okay.
Well, yeah, he's been dealing with some undisclosed elbow issues. So I don't know what the heck is going on with him.
Well, that's even worse. Okay. Regardless, this ain't all on Mitchell. This isn't all on Bo Collins. Let's even rewind it back to the Indiana game. Joe, was 3rd and 4, and what happened? They run a slant route. Bo Collins lays out. He can't hold on to the football, but he's laying out to try to catch a quick slant. Okay. Will Pauling, I know you're not a big fan of him, but let me defend him to this.
It's not that I'm a big fan. I just don't think his play style fits with what Notre Dame needed. They've got a lot of guys already like him.
Sometimes when can I be frank with you? Your play style right now, receivers not winning you games anyway. You might have to go outside the box. You did go outside the box. Will Pauling, for what it's worth, Joe, he had 74 catches in the Big Ten in 23 when he had a stable, but it was stabilized at quarterback. Joe, I'll be real with you. When LSU played Wisconsin 2 years ago in the bowl game, Will Pauling was the best offensive weapon that they had.
Yeah.
It wasn't remotely close, okay? Can you get him back to that production? Now, when Tyler Van, what's his name?
Tyler Van Dyke and
Van Dyke went down.
Braden Locke was the kid who filled in for him.
Kid barely had catches. Joey, I went and looked this up. He had 42 catches, okay, this season. 21 of them came before the Van Dyke went down. So over half of his production came in 4 games. That's insanity. That's plain insanity. Now, I understand what you're saying, but here's the truth that I'm gonna throw your way. Receiver is a fickle recruiting haul. Let me tell you why. Mm-hmm. Until you start having dudes that have severe production, they're not going to your school. Somebody's gonna have to break out, dude. I will tell you, listen, the place that I talk about all the time. What is the number one thing that they have? Look at the 4 receivers that are in the league right now. Brian Thomas, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors. What do they all have in common? It took the one guy in Odell to burst out, and then everybody wanted to come here. Until somebody comes out, you're going to be stuck with guys you're going to have to continue to go in portal. However, Malachi Fields is a dude. So if you can get him the football in one-on-one situations, he's fast enough, he's strong enough, he can make contested catches. He high points the football really well. He did it against you, and you know what happened. Marcus Freeman, he kept catching passes on Notre Dame, and he goes, "Let's start tampering."
Okay, all right. Stop it. We're not doing. You always love to do that shit.
The thing about Fields that's interesting to me: 55 catches, 808 yards. The last 2 years, he's been at 800 yards, around 55 catches, and 5 touchdowns. Very consistent. The question for a guy like Fields is, can he take that next step? Now, the last thing I'm going to throw in here.
Okay.
Brand new quarterback with an O-line that will be coming back. I wouldn't expect fireworks early. I wouldn't, even with them. So I think that you got 2 solid players. I don't know if they can take you to where you want to go, though.
Okay, so this is where, by the way, Cam Williams was the freshman that I always mix up Cam Coleman and Cam Williams. They were part of the same.
What happened to the Great House kid? Great House can't play anymore?
No, he's been playing. It's just they haven't gotten production out of these guys. I think the big thing to talk about here with bringing in Pauling and Fields is that you're bringing in 2 guys that are premier athletes that play unique roles. Pauling has potential. I just think that there's a lot of guys of his physical profile already on this Notre Dame roster. He's 5'10", and he's apparently a 4.3 guy. He was on Feldman's freak list. You already have guys like Faison, who's already got that build, who's already in a contributing role. Where does he play in the mix? He's more of a slot guy than – okay.
I'll tell you. As someone who saw Denbrock do this multiple times, Denbrock wants to go underneath shot. Underneath shot. It's like clockwork. When you have to decide if you're going to take away a drag or a quick in or a slant or a boundary hitch, okay, you have to then, as a safety, pick one or the other. It's exactly what he did against with Jaden last year. Okay, are you going to take away the quick hitch with Kyron Lacey, or are you going to take away Malik Neighbors? So what happened? They started taking away Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, clearly. So what happened? You had 4 games in the beginning of the year where Kyron Lacey's going off. Why? He's going off because you got to decide what you're going to do. Joe, there's no counteract for speed. None. And as someone who saw – and look, this is just an observation. Considering the guy that committed on our show, meaning AYS, and having conversations, Denbrock's complete philosophy is that he wants a big body and then he wants speed.
Well, right. So this is, and you said, does it ultimately get them where they're trying to go? I don't think that these 2 moves automatically solve the problem. And they're like, boom, you've gotten a 1,000-yard and an 800-yard receiver that Notre Dame hasn't had in a long time. That's 100% what's going to happen. I think that it's a year-by-year progression. It's a year-by-year improvement. Denbrock wasn't there in time last year to really have a mold and a say in building this receiver room. And the guys that they had, to what you're talking about, weren't able to be deployed to the degree that Notre Dame was hoping that they were. I think is what we're talking about here is that if Bo Collins can be a 500-600-yard receiver, or not Bo Collins, if Will Pauling can be a 500-600-yard receiver this upcoming season, which is a little bit better than this past year, and he's going to be playing in a better offense, that he's not going to be the only receiver that's getting targeted. And if Malachi Fields can be that go-to option on the sideline and in contested catch situations at 6'4", 220, that if you need him on 3rd down and 7, we can rely on that. That is what Notre Dame has not had. They just haven't had a go-to option that, like, man, it's 3rd and 8. Who is going to get open, and who do we trust to come down with the football? That's where the difference comes into play. They don't need to take these grand steps forward. Just let me finish. They don't need to take these grand steps forward. They just need to show continual signs of improvement on a year-to-year basis. That's where this gets better.
I got to defend Notre Dame. I can't believe I'm the one in here defending Notre Dame. BS. Because I saw Bo Collins getting open on 3rd and 7s against Indiana, against Louisville, against other teams, and Riley Leonard can't get him the football.
It's more on the receipt. Riley Leonard did his best job of actually reading the field that
Joe,
he's done
you
most
can't
of the
watch an
season.
Indiana game. We talked about this in the
No,
post.
that's on the receivers, man. It's on the receivers.
Bo
Those
Collins
guys
is diving for the football. That's not on him. I am sorry. I'm sorry. That is bullshit.
Bo Collins was not good this year, dude, and he was fine in the Indiana game.
Fine.
I know that every throw
Every
wasn't
time
perfect.
Joe, you can't look at third down production and Riley Leonard having a 17%, 18%, whatever it was, completion percentage different on third down than where he is everywhere else and say that it's all on the receiving core. Sorry.
I'm not saying it's all on the receiving core. I know that Riley Leonard hasn't been perfect, but at the same time, like, they did not have a receiver that was reliable. The only guy that was reliable in the Indiana game, and the only reason why he suddenly returned to form was because he was battling an ankle injury and was suddenly back to health, was Jordan Faison. He's the only guy that I'm excited about. The rest of the group is a bit underwhelming. Greathouse could eventually turn into a good player, and Cam Williams is somebody to track.
What happens when a quarterback hits the receiver in the chest instead of him having to dive in on crucial third and downs in the red zone?
That's also going to be very important. And they have two guys that are going to be much better at that.
I'm never going to get on a receiver when a ball's missed on 3rd and 7 and you're having to throw the ball 7 to 10 yards.
These guys aren't creating consistent separation, though. So, like, I'm not going to sit here and act like
when they are people. Do you think Pauling can't?
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.